Hey guys, we're going to take a little break from the scale models and focus on the work that we do on Pontiac Fieros. Here we're going to be removing the distributor cap and heading toward the ignition module for a replacement. And also something interesting I found due to a small issue I had while driving the car. Now there are two screws that hold the distributor cap in. They're 7/32 bits or Phillips. You unscrew them and then pull the distributor cap right off. You don't even have to remove the wires from the cap, which prevents you from getting a little mix-up in your firing order. The ignition module will be held on with two screws that are attached right to the base of the distributor. Once we remove those, which are also 7/32, and remove a couple of electrical connectors, we'll have easy access to the module, and that will allow for easy replacement. It's very simple, and once you guys see me go through it, you won't have any issues with doing it in the future. This is a common issue with fieros. We all know, always carry an extra. Now we're in here because last time I drove the car, I hit a bump and then all of a sudden the engine just shut off. And I coasted to the side of the road. I had all full electrical power, so it wasn't an electrical issue, an electrical power issue. It was just the engine there was no ignition. So I sat for a few minutes, then I gave it a couple of cranks and it started right up and ran perfectly fine after that. Then it happened the second time, so I figured let me just take a look and see what's going on back here. That's when I decided to pull the distributor cap and go through the ignition control module, which is why we're here today. And I'm going to go with you guys through an entire replacement of the ignition control module. Now, I had previously removed the module just to take a look on the inside and see what's going on. And when I did that, I found something interesting when I pulled off the original distributor cap. Once I got the cap off, I took a look inside, and this is what I found. My rotor had, for some reason, been grinding itself into the distributor cap. As you can see here, the melted portion of the distributor cap where it was making contact. Now, this heated the plastic up and caused the center pin to get seized inside the cap. The pin is spring-loaded, and it must have gone in, and it must have been heat generated by the plastic rubbing, and it caused the plastic around the pin to melt just enough to keep the pin trapped inside and not making contact with the rotor. And once the rotor lost contact, we had no electrical spark to the contacts for the spark plugs. And as you know, once the rotor loses contact and loses spark, it's not getting to the spark plugs, and you got not any spark plugs, you're not gonna have any engine ignition. So I'm gonna guess that that's what caused it to shut off. And so now I've replaced the rotor and the cap. And I figured since I'm in here, I have a brand new ignition module. We're gonna put that in just to hedge our bets. Now this is a new ignition control module. It's an original GM AC Doco control module. I would recommend you only use these, as the aftermarket ones are of questionable quality. And as I said before, they're very easy to replace. This is what I'll be using, the Icy Diamond, as I showed before. It's got 24 karat diamond dust in the paste, which is supposed to be an incredible heat insulator. It's used in all sorts of high temperature microprocessors, and I figured, hey, couldn't hurt to use it here. The ignition control module failure is a very common thing among fieros, and that's why we always carry an extra. It's one of the quirks of owning a 32-year-old sports car. Other than that, it's a fantastic car. I have very few issues with it. I've done quite a bit of work on it myself, as you all know, and I am not ready to give it up yet. Every time I get in, I enjoy the ride. So once you get used to the fact that it is a 32-year-old car and you're going to run into these bugs every once in a while, it's not that hard to live with. Okay, here we're going with the reinstallation procedure of the ignition control module. The first thing we're going to want to do is clean the entire mounting plate off on the distributor, as we don't want any residue or anything in there getting between the module, the thermal paste, and the distributor base. So what I'm doing here is I'm using some contact cleaner, spraying it all over the base and just wiping it off and getting all the residue of the old thermal paste off, so that we can be sure that when we install the module, it'll seat firmly on the base without any old crap in there getting in the way and possibly causing any heating issues for the module. Now this is my old thermal paste, Arctic Silver. This stuff works great. Used to be able to pick it up at any Radio Shack, but of course we know can't do that anymore. And I went over to a computer store we have here and found that they do carry the thermal paste, and they had this one here, the Icy Diamond. So I figured I'd pick this one up and give it a try, and we'll see if it performs better than the Arctic Silver. From everything that I've read and what I was told at the computer store, this should be a great improvement over the Arctic Silver. Okay, here I'm applying the Icy Diamond thermal paste to the module itself. There are two ways you can do this, either to the module or apply it right to the base. I find it a little easier just to apply it to the module. Just have to be careful when you're going in that you don't rub the base plate of the module on anything as you're putting it in there. Okay, now I have the Icy Diamond applied to the bottom of the module. It's a very thick paste, and once you put it on there, it's gonna stay there. And now we just have to do all of our twists and turns and get the module into position, and then we're gonna reconnect all of our connectors. Now as we're putting it in, we just have to make sure we reconnect all three electrical connectors. The one at the pickup coil, which is right below the rotor, and the two that come from the coil and from the engine side on the base of the ignition module itself. One is a 2-pin connector, the other one I think is a 4-pin connector, and each one has to go plugged in. And keep an eye out for the clips that hold them on, as they will be very brittle with age and some of them may be broken. Now we're going to install the two bolts that hold down the ignition module. They're both 7/32 bolts, and you have to be very careful, like I said before, when you put them in. Do not over tighten them, as you can strip out the distributor housing very, very easily. It's only a few newton meters or inch pounds of torque necessary to bolt them down, and that's really not much, so be very, very careful. Okay, after bolting down the module, I'm then going to go ahead and plug in the two connectors, the one from the coil and the one from the body harness. And as I said before, be very careful and take a look at the connectors and make sure that their locking clips are not broken, as most of them will be at this point, as old as these cars are. Okay, now it's time to bolt the distributor cap back on. Again, very simple. All you have to do is just make sure it seats properly right on the ignition module. There is a groove right in the front of the ignition module where the cap will mount. Now you have to make sure that that's perfectly seated on there. Then you're going to screw in the two 7/32 bolts that are on either side, and again, make sure they're nice and tight, but don't over tighten, because you can strip out that housing very easily. And once that's done, your job is complete. One last thing, don't forget to plug that coil wire back into your coil, as that had to be removed when you pulled the distributor cap off. And if you get to put that back in, then you're going to find the car won't start. So let's not forget that. And then let's just clip all our wires down into their retainers to make sure that they're not flopping all over the place. If you have the original wires, then The retainers hold them perfectly in place so that they don't touch anything they're not supposed to. And as this car has all the original wiring, I make sure it all goes back exactly the way it was. Now let's give her her first start since the end of summer. Alright guys, this pretty much ends the replacement of the ignition control module. I'm going to let her run for a little bit now, just to let her get a little warmed up before she goes back to sleep for the winter, as she won't be seeing the street again until the summer, or at least until the weather cooperates a little better around here. Thanks for watching, and remember, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up if you found this useful. Anybody who didn't know how to do this, the mystery is now gone. And you guys can dive right in and fix them yourself. Alright, I'll see you on the next one.